Welcome back. I'm Chris Vanocur. You're watching the tail end of On the Record. Today we're talking about fair boundaries, or more specifically, fair political boundaries. And before we continue our discussion, Lisa's going to hate me doing this, but we're going to put up your website on the screen. And if you could tell people what that is and what they're going to find there.
That is our website, fairboundaries.org, and there you will find the petition itself. You will find a PowerPoint presentation that shows just how poorly things have been mapped, and sort of a parade of horrors that you can look at, and contact information, background information, opportunities to donate to the cause. All of that information is on our website.
Speaking of background information, in preparing for this show, I looked over some of the materials your group sent over, and I think there was a quote, was it from the Wall Street Journal in 2001? Mm-hmm. And I gather that they didn't think much of our map.
You're right. In fact, the Wall Street Journal said that Utah was the worst gerrymandered state in the Union.
Highly liberal publication saying that.
Yeah.
I'm being facetious.
Oh, I know.
But I think that goes to the heart of the matter, is that it's back to that competitive nature of really what the Wall Street Journal tries to breed in the business as well as the political arena.
How much bipartisan or nonpartisan support are you finding for this?
As we're moving forward, more bipartisan than originally, but our main leader is Merrill Nelson, who was a former Republican in the House who lives in Grantsville and saw firsthand what they had done to Tooele. And he is a partner, a law partner. He's practiced law for 27 years, very qualified, and he is a spokesperson on many fronts. And he is the main petitioner on this initiative.
You know, to that point, Chris, this really isn't Republican or Democrat.
No.
This is really about citizens having the opportunity to elect those that will represent them and their community.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm a little bit more jaded than you.
You are.
Because I'm still up at the legislature covering. When I heard you say that, what went through my mind is it shouldn't be Republican or Democrat, but back to our earlier question, I can't help but wonder how much it will be.
Well, it's going to be all the way. Who wants to give up ultimate power? Mm-hmm. Who wants to give up that ability to decide their future, their leadership position, and all those things that are there? It's going to take the citizens of both parties to come together and do the right thing for the state of Utah.
We had a booth at both the Democratic State Convention and the Republican State Convention. And the response from the delegates, not that necessarily the leadership, but the response from the delegates who are attending those conventions were both very supportive, equally supportive. And it really comes down to issues of fairness and issues of having a representative that is from my neighborhood, my community, mm-hmm. that actually represents me. And this is on both sides of the spectrum.
That reminds me of a comment I heard. It might have been at one of the Democratic state conventions, and I think it was Jim Gonzalez who told me this. He said, you know, power is never given, it must be taken. Is there an element of that here?
I think its citizens are rising, and you see it in a lot of political campaigns. It's grassroots organizing and citizens coming up and saying, the powers that be are not doing what we want. And they're coming up and they're taking it back.
I think on that point, my own personal experience, when I was gerrymandered out of my seat, I was as discouraged as anybody could be. And it was Senator Rex Black who pulled me in and said, Scott, go out there, quit feeling sorry for yourself and make a difference. And what we found in our campaign, because I think in that election we won by 68%, is that when the citizens knew what had happened, they voted, and they voted for to correct the thing that had happened that was wrong.
Lisa, fast forward to November 2010. Is this going to be on the ballot, and is it going to pass?
I think it will pass. I think it's definitely going to be on the ballot. I think that there's going to be a groundswell of support. I can see this thing as a correction that has been long in coming, and I believe that the people will understand it and vote for it.
Fast forward a little bit more, say it's on the ballot, it passes, and you come up with recommendations for the legislature. How much can they change those? Would it be a straight yes or no vote?
That's correct. The way we've written it is that it goes to the legislature for a yes or no vote, and it goes to a special session upon the governor's proclamation. If they reject it, then the legislature itself will do the redistricting, and they will abide by the guidelines of this commission. And that is, they have to abide by the United States Constitution, the Utah State Constitution, the Voting Rights Act. It must be compact, contiguous, equal in population to the greatest extent possible. It must show respect for neighbors, for cities and county boundaries, and respect for communities. And so those criteria have to be applied by the legislature if they reject the plan that's recommended by the commission. And all of those are lawful. Those are all required.
Think about what she just said, though. What citizen doesn't want that in their government today? Communities of interest, boundaries of interest, all those type of things really are at the heart and soul of democracy. And that's what this initiative is all about. It's giving both Democrat and Republican to have the opportunity to participate in this process. And Rob made this point, you know, in Utah, the caucus system, and a lot of times your delegates are elected there, and really the race is over. If you go to a highly Republican community like Orem or Utah County, you know, if you can make it through the convention, you're elected.
Yeah.
It's just that plain and simple. That doesn't represent anything that the Founding Fathers ever thought about.
And the idea of when they redistrict the federal boundaries after the last census, and having an urban-rural mix to each of the congressional districts, what it ended up resulting in is that we have 3 U.S. Congress people for the state of Utah that reside within 40 miles of each other on the Wasatch Front. And yet there's no representation, and these people feel this way. The people in Iron County, Washington County, Carbon, Emory, they don't feel like they have representation in the U.S. Congress because they feel like, in their words, they're all from Salt Lake.
Tell you what, we've got about 30 seconds left. Jeff, if we could put up that full screen again on the, then I will say what it is. It's, Lisa, tell me if I'm wrong, it's www.fairboundaries.org.
That's correct.
I want to thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
And thank you for watching. On the Record will be back next week, I believe, but don't hold me to this. It's a special Pioneers Day show, but I think that's what it is. We'll see you next week.
The views expressed on this program are those of the guests and do not necessarily represent the views of KTVX, its employees, or station management.